everyone, this is Greg K4HSM with an update on the winter weather situation that's coming up here in the next couple of days. It's Friday, January the 23rd, and just wanted to give a update on what's going on as we know it right now. Things have been changing pretty steadily over the last 12 or so hours. There's been a few changes from the weather briefing that we got at 5 a.m. this morning to well, it's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's been a couple of changes already in some of the forecasting and the warnings and such, which I'll show here in a minute. But what you're looking at right there is a precipitation type and timing. And just real quick, you can get this information from the National Weather Service. There's someone who takes this information and sends it out to a mass mailing list, and I'll put the subscription information in the description. But you can see here many of the major communities that are served by the Morristown Weather Service. You've got Chattanooga, Knoxville, Tri-Cities, Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol. So here in Knoxville, it looks like it's going to start out as snow tomorrow morning. Then around noon, it's going to transition into more of a wintry mix type situation, possible freezing rain. Then you've got rain Sunday afternoon, and then by Sunday evening, it transitions back into snow. Now, it does not look like it's going to be this much of a snow event, so much as it's going to be an ice event. This is going to be critical here, the timing of it, as well as the accumulation of rain and some of the snow on top of that rain, because the temperatures are going to be dropping down into the teens and single digits Monday and Tuesday. And as a result, we're going to be seeing a lot of icing on the roads. It's going to turn into skating rinks. So that's what it's like here in Knoxville. Down in Chattanooga, it looks like it's going to be more of a mild snow to a rain event, and then a little bit of wintry mix, but doesn't look like they're going to get as much of the icing that they were initially forecasting earlier in the week. The bulk of the impactful winter weather accumulations is expected to occur Saturday afternoon through Sunday. However, confidence is still low in the exact timing and transitions of precipitation. So what you see on this map over here is pretty much a rough estimate, and of course, things can change at the last minute. The bigger concern that I have is the cold temperatures after all of this precipitation has moved through. How much precipitation we get is going to determine how slick the roads are and how treacherous the conditions are. My advice to everybody is basically don't travel if you don't have to. When it comes to snow, here is the current estimates. 26% chance that we're going to get over 2 inches of snow, so it's not a very good probability. But up here near Cumberland Gap, in the Williamsburg, Kentucky area, Byrdstown, Oneida, the northern parts of Tennessee, you're seeing a lot greater percentages for over 2 inches of snow, mainly as you get to the state line. And those chances decrease as we get over 4 inches of snow. Doesn't look like Knoxville's going to get much of that kind of snow. Only 11% chance. Nothing for Chattanooga for any snow accumulations other than maybe a trace. But again, the closer you get to the state line with Kentucky, the higher the likelihood you're going to get snow accumulations. And here's your accumulated snow totals that could happen between now and Sunday. And it looks like Knoxville, we could get half an inch to an inch at the most, at the highest points. And again, the higher into Kentucky that you go, the more that you're going to see a little bit more of that snow. The freezing rain amounts are pretty varied. Between almost nothing here in the South Knox County area into like the Seymour area, going down into the down the valley, basically down towards Cleveland. Between the Cleveland and the mountains areas on the highway there, it looks like there's not going to be much of any ice accumulations. But when you get into the Cumberland Plateau, you see there's significantly more ice accumulations. And over here into uh, North and South Carolina, you see some significant ice accumulations. They're getting up to upwards of a half an inch to an inch of ice in some parts of the Carolinas. It doesn't take a whole lot to really bring down an infrastructure with a little bit of ice. Here you can see with a tenth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of ice, black ice is likely. You have impactful accumulations. You have tree damage and power outages beginning. With a half an inch of ice, significant accumulation, roadways are impassable, and tree damage and power outages are going to be pretty widespread. An inch or greater could cause catastrophic failure to a power grid. I don't think we're going to see anything like that here in East Tennessee. But again, in the Carolinas, you may have that possibility. So here you have a temperature chart for the region, and here in Knoxville you see that we have temperatures in the 30s and even up into the low 40s by 6 o'clock Sunday evening. However, they start to plummet into the 20s and then into the teens and the single digits on Tuesday morning. And so, again, depending on how much precipitation we get, could determine how treacherous the roads are for the next couple of days. Another factor that came into play now is the winds, but it's mainly in the higher elevations, the mountains and the foothills. They're going to get some high wind gusts over 40 miles an hour, it looks like. So if you're up in the higher elevations along the state line between Tennessee and North Carolina, be mindful of wind. And these winds could bring down trees, branches, and such, and cause power outages to communities up in the mountains. So here's an updated map of the watches and warnings and advisories for the area going into this weekend. It came out at 10 o'clock this morning. You can see Knoxville, Knox County, Anderson County, Jefferson County, and pretty much everywhere along I-75 from Knoxville down to Chattanooga and surrounding counties are under an ice storm warning, whereas the winter weather advisory here in the light blue is in effect for pretty much the counties alongside the mountains on the North Carolina border. You can see the mountains between the North Carolina state line and Tennessee are under a high wind warning as well, and everywhere else to the north is under a winter storm warning. So here is a forecast model of what the weather could look like going into Sunday morning, and you can see this is what we are up against. Now I'm going to show you an example of a warm nose. If you take a look, this is a model showing the skew T chart of what could be in the upper layers of the atmosphere at that point in time this coming Sunday. Now this is what a warm nose is. Now you see here the red line is the temperature, the green is the dew point, and right here in the middle at the bottom is 0 degrees centigrade or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the freezing mark. And that line, that thick dotted line, goes up towards the right. So you have temperatures here starting at 25 degrees Fahrenheit and then getting a little bit colder as you go up to about 1,000 millibars or hectopascals is the measurement here. You have and that's going to be roughly a couple of thousand feet. Then the pressure readings, they get lower the higher up. Then here around the 900 hectopascal point in pressure, roughly, could be 3,000 to 4,000 feet actually here. It warms. It gets warmer up to almost 10 degrees centigrade. It'll be into the 40s. And then around the 650 hectopascal point, you have it going back to sub-freezing. So basically all up here is where the snow forms. It's going to be frozen precipitation. It's going to be snow. Then it's going to fall. When it gets to this point, it's going to melt. Then you get close to the ground here, and it's starting to get cold again, so it's going to start freezing. Well, because it's this low to the ground, it's going to probably not have much of a chance to refreeze, and so when it hits the ground here, it's going to freeze on contact because, again, the temperatures are going to be below freezing, and when it freezes on contact, you get ice. So that's how freezing rain can typically form. This is a very prominent warm nose that has formed, and it's low to the ground, which means the potential for freezing rain is very high for this particular area. This actually is in western Mississippi. At the same time, here in Knoxville, you've got a little bit of a touch of the warm nose, but it's going to be so close to the line that it looks like it'll just fall as frozen precipitation, aka snow. But the potential is still there because, again, this is a model for Sunday morning. And if there is a change in the conditions and it does get warm through here, it'll melt and refreeze, and we could see sleet or we could see freezing rain. It's a little bit higher up in altitude, so it looks like it'd mostly be sleet. Then later on in the Sunday afternoon, again, this is a model prediction, you have a bit of a warm nose here for East Tennessee. This is actually right over us here in East Tennessee. Snow is falling. It'll melt here about the 700 mark, which probably be about 10,000 feet. Then around 5,000 feet, it'll refreeze because temperatures will be below freezing at that point in the atmosphere. Again, this is low to the ground. So if you're up in the mountains or at a somewhat high elevation, when it hits the ground at 30 degrees Fahrenheit, if it's still liquid precipitation, it'll make contact with whatever surface and freeze. Again, these are all models, and there's nothing that's going to be absolutely certain until it happens. You can make the best predictions in the world and still be wrong. So some of these videos from non-traditional television markets can often be rather bombastic with their graphics, and again, I think the purpose is to try and get clicks, likes, and subscribes. So you just have to be very careful when you use those types of channels. I still recommend you highly use the National Weather Service office in your location, as well as your local TV and radio stations. I think they are going to be the better source for what's going to really happen. And again, they know the area better than some of these social meteorologists do. So again, be mindful of the weather as it comes through this weekend. There is going to be some stuff. We're going to get a little bit of something. We're not sure exactly what. Still, we won't pretty much know until we get it. Although I do think here in Knox County, we're going to get an icing situation. Could be a little, could be a lot, but again, it doesn't take a lot to really wreak havoc on roads and on power lines in this area. So be ready for a power outage. Have at least a gallon of water per person per day in your household, and hopefully it won't be as bad. East Tennessee SKYWARN is going to be on the 146.940 repeater. If you can't listen to it on a radio, you can listen to it on Broadcastify. Here's the information of what you're going to be looking for. I'll put a link to this in the description. And hopefully, again, everything will be all for naught, but at least we should be prepared for the worst. And with that, this is Greg, K4HSM. We'll see you again tomorrow, probably early in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock-ish. We'll start doing hourly check-ins, and you can, again, listen to us on Broadcastify. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great weekend, and hopefully everybody stays safe.